What's up, y'all? I'm Stephen Daniels, the founder of PureFreedom, a company I created because I believe that no one should have to live an addicted life. Thank you for tuning in to the PureFreedom podcast, where I teach people how to break free from porn addiction, the addicted lifestyle, and show them how to start living their best life. Okay, so today something came to me. I was thinking about recovery. I was thinking about sobriety, and I was thinking about what does it take for us to reach sobriety? How do we get there? And the reason why I started asking this question is because there are things going on in my life that are presenting challenges for me, and I began to shy away from those things. So what that feeling that I had, the feeling of not wanting to deal with these seemingly unpleasant things, not wanting to deal with these things that seem like they would be a problem, a challenge for me. What that feeling felt like was my own, I guess, maybe laziness from my perspective, maybe something inside of me that made me question, well, how bad do you want to do this? How important is this thing to you? And what I recognized was, as I thought through and processed those feelings a little bit, was sometimes there are things that we want to do, we want to achieve, we want to accomplish, but because our minds and because our brains understand and know that if we go towards those things, we're going to have to deal with problems. We're going to have to deal with challenges. We're going to have to face obstacles that we're going to have to overcome. Our brain is optimized to want to do what's easiest, what's the simplest thing for us to do. So instead of doing a thing that's difficult, let's say if you want to lose weight, you have to go to the gym and work out. You have to choose to eat healthy foods. You have to consume a lower amount of calories than what you've been consuming. So all those things are important. We all know those things. But what happens in our mind when it's time to pick the cheeseburger or the salad? Our brains look at the salad and says to ourselves, well, if I eat this, I might be hungry later on, right? If this isn't going to satisfy my palate, the taste that I'm used to. And so what we do is we go for the burger. We don't go for the burger because we necessarily don't want the salad. We go for or we don't want to lose weight. We might not want the salad, but we don't want to lose weight. We go for the burger because it's easier to eat the burger than it is to eat the salad. Our brain believes that it's easier because we've trained our brain to eat the burger. And so for our brain to go towards a salad, it has to do more work in order to eat that salad. It has to do more work in order to continually eat healthy in general than it would if it just stayed consistent with the pattern we've already trained into it. And the way that this translates to recovery is that there's lots of things that we know we need to do to stay in sobriety, right? We know we shouldn't go to strip clubs, okay? We know we shouldn't ogle women at the beach. We know when we're at the gym, we should bounce our eyes. If a woman is in there with leggings or whatever on, we shouldn't be staring, right? We know these things. The hard part is convincing our brain to bounce our eyes when we're at the gym, convincing our brain to drive past the strip club on the way home at night. That's challenging, and it's challenging because our brain has learned that it's easier to do those things than it is to not. It takes more energy. Our brains are trying to conserve energy and trying to be efficient. So it's easier for the brain to do what you've already trained it to do than it is for it to do something different. It takes more energy and more thought to change your behavior, and the brain doesn't like that. So what I recognize in myself is that when I run into obstacles, when I run into challenges, and I'm dealing with things that I really don't want to do I feel like I don't want to do. I'll say that. When I say I really don't want to do it, I'll say in my heart, I feel like I don't want to do it. In reality, what I'm actually feeling is the brain's resistance to doing something that's going to have obstacles and challenges involved in it. And what I've learned about my brain, and my brain's no different from anyone else's, is that the more you do the difficult things, the easier they become, right? The more salad you eat in place of those burgers, the easier it becomes to eat salads. Okay. And so the more we choose to do the things that are difficult, the easier those difficult things become. And the more time that we spend rewiring our brains to do the things that we know that we need to do and the things that we actually want to do. So I'm saying all this to say, when you're thinking about making, healthy choices that keep you in sobriety, when you're thinking about doing the things that seem like they might be challenging, don't beat yourself up if you're feeling like, man, why don't I want to do this? Because it may not be that you don't want to do it. You do want to do it. It's just not as easy to do as the thing that you've been doing. Perhaps you can think instead, I do want to do this. If I choose to do this, even though it's difficult, the more that I do it, the easier things will become for me. So doing it in the future, 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now, will be a lot easier than doing it right now. That's what I need to think about. That's what we should be thinking about as we pursue sobriety, right? So all the things that, we talk about on some of these podcasts, things that you may have read on the PureFreedom.co website where we post our blog, things like bouncing your eyes, things like making sure that you're in an accountability group, things like choosing your environment carefully so that you're not surrounded by temptation. All those things are things that can seem difficult in the moment, and may feel like we don't want to do them. But in reality, it's just our brain's way of telling us, if you do this other thing, I'm going to be able to conserve energy. And I like that. It's easier for me. So you have to override the circuitry in your mind and take a step back, pause, and think about making a choice to do what seems like a difficult thing in that moment. When you can pause and give yourself time to think, then you can make a better choice about what's best for you. And I'm going to say, and I'm going to encourage you to do what seems difficult, because we have to be able to do these things if we want to be free. There is no way to sobriety without doing what's hard. There is no way to sobriety without making sacrifices. I had to give up a lot, to get to where I'm at. And I told you guys I'm over 5.5 years sober. And during that time, I had to give up social media for a period of time. I eventually got back on social media, but that's more recently. Now that I'm 5 years sober, for 10 years, I wasn't on it. I had to give up going to the gym at certain times because I figured out when times where it would be more crowded or more people there's more temptation to look at things that I shouldn't be looking at. So I go at times where I know there's less people and there's less to look at. And if there is something to look at, I can bounce my eyes, or I can work out in an area of the gym where no one else is around. I had to give that up. I had to give up rated R movies without a chaperone who is my wife. If we look at the ratings on movies, if it's, explicit and there's a ton of sex and all that stuff, then we didn't watch it, right? I wouldn't watch it if she wasn't there. And if she was there, she'd cover my eyes with her hands. I know it sounds cheesy, but those are the type of things I had to do for myself, right? So those are the sacrifices. Some of them I had to make. And all of you are going to have to make sacrifices if you want to reach sobriety. It's a non-negotiable. Don't think that you're going to be able to get to where you want to get to without having to give something up. You can't get something for nothing in this world. It doesn't work that way. Everything comes with a cost. Everything comes with a price. You got to give it up. So I'm going to encourage you to think about what sacrifices you're going to have to make in order to reach sobriety. What things are you going to have to give up? What challenges and difficulties you're going to have to embrace as you pursue sobriety. Don't run from them like I did for a period of time. I ran from those challenges. I ran from the sacrifices I needed to make. And during that time, I suffered. And my addiction got worse, not better. My relationships got worse. My relationship with my wife got worse. My performance at work got worse. My mental health got worse. All the things that I now treasure, I now enjoy, were messed up because I ran from sacrifice. I ran from doing the hard stuff. So you guys got to do the hard stuff. You guys got to make sacrifices. You guys have to commit yourselves to being people that are going to embrace challenge and not run from it. Embrace pain and not run from it. Because the more you go through the pain, the more you embrace the challenge, the easier the challenges become. So that's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to think before each week, what am I going to have to sacrifice this week so that I can stay in recovery? What am I going to have to sacrifice so that I can reach sobriety, so that I can have a happy marriage, free of lies, free of stress from the consequences of my behavior, so I can go to work and not have a cloudy mind and be able to think clearly and logically, so that I can stop feeling shame, so I can stop beating myself up, so I can live the life that I know God wants me to live, a respectable life, a life of purity, and not live in the shadows, so to speak, not live in darkness, not live filled with fear, anxiety, or maybe rage. What am I going to have to give up this week? What's it going to take? These are things I think about each week now. I used to not do that, but now I do. I think about, what am I going to have to give up to stay in sobriety? Even at 5.5 years, I still have to think about these things. And I still have things that I do give up from time to time. You know, a lot of the guys in my accountability group know that the first time I went on a year stint of, I had a year of abstaining from porn, I actually gave up all forms of entertainment for 1 week of each year for a full year straight. This was back in I think 2017 or something like that. And so what I did was each week I fasted. You know, as you guys know, I'm a follower of Jesus. Jesus fasted. I said, hey, why not? Let me do that too. So I fasted. I disabled Facebook. I disabled Instagram or whatever else I had. I uninstalled all my video games. I turned off Netflix and all other streaming services. And I spent a lot of time outside during that week. I spent a lot of time reading. I spent a lot of time going to the gym. I spent a lot of time talking to my friends and family on the phone. And I also spent time, reading the Bible because I'm a believer. And this could apply to anybody. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be a Christian to do what I did. You can go read whatever book inspires you, whether it's, whatever your faith is. If something that's inspiring and helpful and providing, tools for you to better yourself. But that's what I did. And I did that for a year, 1 week out of every month for a year. And all it took was that 1 week for me to set myself up for the rest of the month and be in a mental place that kept me on the path to sobriety. Now, eventually I did relapse. So I will acknowledge that. And the time where I actually realized I wasn't fasting, I had stopped fasting at that time. And I'm not blaming that on the fast. I think I hit another wall, and it was time for me to climb over that wall and go to the next level, get to another milestone. But my point is that I know that the reason why I was able to make that progress was because I gave something up. I made a huge sacrifice, which was my time through fasting. I sacrificed my time. I gave up the time I spent entertaining myself and replaced it with activities that were building myself up mentally and spiritually and emotionally. So I want you to consider doing that as well. These are the type of sacrifices that we have to make as we pursue sobriety. These sorts of things, everybody has their challenge to overcome, and each challenge requires a different sacrifice. Well, when you're in recovery, when you're in sobriety, these are the type of sacrifices you have to make, right? It's not about saying no to the hamburger. It's about saying no to the rated X movie or rated R movie. Okay? That's your sacrifice. It's about making sure that when you walk into the gym, you work out in a place in the gym where maybe you're facing a wall, or you're just looking at a mirror where you only see yourself and not anybody else. Those are the type of sacrifices that we have to make. All right. So I want everybody to be encouraged. I wanted to share this because it was on my heart. And, I know what it takes to do great things, but I can't say that I'll always do the things that it takes to achieve great things in every area of my life. In some areas I do, in other areas there's room for improvement, right? And I think that could be said about anybody, but I'm just saying that to say, you can know consciously what you're supposed to do, but there is a gap between knowing what you're supposed to do and doing it. And the way you close that gap is by understanding that your brain is seeking to conserve energy. So it's going to want to do what's easiest. You have to tell your brain that you're going to do what's hard, because in the long run, what's hard will become what's easy if you do it consistently. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I'm telling you that if you make a choice as you're pursuing sobriety, if you make a choice and say, you know what, I've been going through this struggle for way too long. Something needs to change. And you make a choice to do what's hard. Whatever it is your brain is telling you it doesn't want to do, that is going to help you stay sober, do it. Keep doing it. Do it consistently. And eventually, right? Eventually, that thing will become like second nature to you. And that's one of the keys to getting to a point where you reach a new milestone in your recovery. For me, one of my milestones was knowing that this is going to probably sound funny to some of y'all, but knowing that I could stay at home by myself at night while my wife was working night shift and not be tempted to act out, right? And the reason why that was a milestone for me, because for a long time, I didn't trust myself to do that based on my behavior. I just observed what I would do. And I knew that, that was an environment that was not good for me. It was triggering for me, but I had no way out of that environment because she had to go to work, right? And I had to stay at home and sleep, or I had to be in the house. I wasn't going to sleep on the floor. I had to be at home. But eventually, I built habits that allowed me to resist the temptation that would come to me when she was gone and I was by myself. One of the things I learned how to do was to change your environment. If you know that being at home by yourself in front of your computer at 11 o'clock at night is too much temptation for you, based on the fact that you've acted out multiple times in the past following that same pattern, then don't be in your room on the computer at 11 o'clock at night. Perhaps be in a different room with no computers. Perhaps be in the bed and have your phone in your office and get an alarm clock. Perhaps don't have a phone if the phone is too much temptation for you, or get a flip phone, which I've known some guys to do when the phone became too much. So these are the type of sacrifices that we have to make. These are the type of sacrifices we have to make. So thanks for listening. I hope what I said was helpful today. And I really want this idea of making sacrifices to become a part of your identity, because it's the only way to sobriety. When I think about my journey, it's the only way. I had to give up so much. compared to the average person, but it was worth it in the end. And it seems painful in the moment. It seems like hard to let go of, but keep your eyes set on your ultimate goal, which is to live a life of sobriety, free of the pain that you're now going through and the suffering, the mental anguish, the broken relationships. When you reach sobriety, you're going to be free of all that stuff. But in order to get there, you got to make sacrifices, and you got to be committed to doing what's hard, what your brain sees as hard. Thanks for listening in to today's episode of the Pure Freedom Podcast. I hope today helped you in some way. If you like today's content or know of someone who needs to hear this, please share this episode. If you want to hear stories about people who broke free from porn addiction after years of being addicted, check out our blog at purefreedom.co. See you next time.